Dude, you are getting well. Dude, you're getting angry. Have you ever heard that before from yourself or your partner? Or do you have some anger in general that you know you haven't dealt with? Or someone in your life has anger and just scares you? You don't know what to do. Well, I've heard all of the above. And I heard a talk recently with this brilliant gentleman who I had the honor of meeting and getting to know. Thanks to my producer, Becky Sheehan. Big shout out to Becky. Thank you for everything you do. And she introduced me to Adrian Marquez, who's a mental health counselor. He has his own center in Florida, and he's also a combat veteran and a Marine. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Adrian.
Thank you for having me back, brother. It's always a pleasure.
Yes. Oh, and thank you for saying that. Yeah. So this is part two of we had Adrian before, and I was so excited to. It went so well, and we have so much to talk about that thought we have to get him back on the show. And we wanted to talk about anger, and we actually went a lot deeper last time, and today we may still go deep, but we're gonna have some fun as well, and just really pull the veil back on anger. And I want to look at it from a few different standpoints. I'm, the emo guy and always talking about feelings and stuff. And by the way, if you have questions, please let us know as we're going, if you're listening live, as we stream on Facebook and YouTube. So anything you have for us, let me know along the way. So with that being said, yeah, I wanted to focus on anger. I saw this great talk that you did, Adrian, on Facebook, and it was months ago, but you broke it down in such a good way. And I was wondering if we could just talk about it a little bit here today. Before we do that, thanks for being on the show. Welcome back.
It's always a pleasure, yeah.
It's really good to have you here. What are you most proud of in your life right now?
Whew, man, just come with a shotgun blast or a random question.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I got to say, I'm honestly proud of my wife. She's doing her own journey. She has been for a long time, and I'm really proud of just sometimes I reflect back and I think of the people we were when we got married, and who have the honor of being married to today. And all the growth that woman has made for us and for my family. So,
What are you Yeah, go ahead.
Unintentionally, you just gave me some great opportunity to throw my wife out there and mention that I'm proud of her. So thanks.
Oh, that's awesome. Absolutely, I love that. Yeah, my pleasure. And what are you're really proud of her. What are you most proud of yourself for in your relationship? What would you say is your biggest accomplishment?
Man, I mean,
big or small. It could be today I didn't blow up, or anything.
No, I mean, I when I was in Marine Special Operations, I was a team chief with Marine Raiders or Force Recon and Recon. At no point in time when I was doing those types of operations that I think to myself as you're blowing up a door, you're like, you know what? One day I think I'm going to become a mental health counselor. I feel like the journey that God has brought me on, and the things that I've gotten a chance to learn about myself, and a lot of things I had to work through myself too. I can't even take credit for it myself. It's been something greater than me that's kind of helped me get to where I'm at today.
That's beautiful. Well, thank you. You're a very humble man. So just so people know your background, can you tell us a little bit about how would you describe your background? I'll let you say it today.
Yeah, a unique type of therapist, I guess. So I spent 16 years in the Marine Corps. I got blown up, messed up enough that I had to go to Wounded Warrior Regiment, patched back together again. And on that journey, kind of working with therapists, realizing that they didn't connect with me. They were smart guys, a lot of great information, but just didn't connect with me. And I wanted to try to become the type of therapist that I wish I had for the people that are maybe more like me. That's it in a nutshell. I guess I kind of bring a more direct and different approach to counseling and to therapy than some of the guys that I've worked with in the past.
Yeah, thank you for saying that too. So what had you first of all, has anger ever been an issue in your life?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I was a very, very angry young man. I mean, I was one of those guys that the recruiter found when I was like suspended from school. Like, he's like, "Hey, shouldn't you be in school?" I'm like, "Screw you, man." He's like, "You want to go mess stuff up?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I do." He's like, "Come on down to the recruiting station." And I mean, even the guys that would have known me when I was, a younger Marine, I was a very aggressive guy. It wasn't until later in my life when I started to recognize where that came from. What hurts, what pains in my past, I was trying to funnel through. And anger, I'm glad we're talking about it today. Anger is a tool that a lot of us misuse, misappropriate, because in different times in our past, we've realized how effective it can be, like how destructive it can be, how it can, just help us get what we want, how it can help us ignore the actual pains of what we're feeling. And I was definitely an angry man when I was younger.
So when did that stop? I mean, did you stop being an angry man when you got older?
Uh,
I
yeah,
mean,
I
I'm
think there's,
still an angry dude sometimes. I mean, I'm not like I'm an angry dude, but I experience, large amounts of anger at times. It still surprised me today. For me, it's like been a lot of grief. The more I've continued to grieve, I've noticed like I'll be like just shaking and I think I'm upset, and then suddenly I feel tears coming. I'm like, oh, that's what it is. Right? It's something like it almost gets misled. But how in your life is anger something that you still wrestle with
of
today?
course, yeah, of course. I mean, that's just that's the reaction that's on everybody's shelf that they can pull from and choose to use. I think there's just the maturity of growing up, getting put in different leadership positions, becoming a husband and a father. I've learned how to, I think I had a lot of great examples of how I didn't want to be, like, and things that I was able to steer away from. And that
Mm.
kind of helped me recognize that I was giving into anger at times and not really recognizing what was underneath of all of that.
Oh wow, yeah. So what was the worst anger ever got for you?
Hmm. I don't know how out there I'm ready to get that. No, I mean, especially
As much
being
as
in the
you're willing to
military.
share, yeah.
No, for sure. I mean, I'm pretty transparent, but I mean, just being in the military, there's a lot of times where, like, you just get this wave of anger that's going to wash over top of you. And that's a place where it can be channeled and focused into very destructive things. There's times when you're on site or on a mission, and you can definitely let anger get to you at times. They kind of champion that in certain places there as well. So, I mean, anger on the battlefield versus anger in your regular life, I think, are they should be two different things. There's certain things that are expected over there that you definitely can't do while you're over here. I've been pretty angry stateside as well too. Back home in my regular life, I think I've done, especially in this more recent season of life, I've done a better job learning how to manage it, learning how to focus it. No one's perfect though, right?
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah. And thank you for answering that. I mean, you didn't have to. So when did you get into therapy? Like, how did this healing journey start? When did you start looking at anger other than a tool to help serve in the military?
Yeah. So I actually first got my first taste of psychology and just getting interested in it came as far back as my first marriage. That one did not go very well, and I was married to a very unhealthy person at that point in time. And they were, I mean, it's something that's all over the news right now. You look at the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, right? And you find somebody that's really good at gaslighting, really good at, like, making other people believe that, their problems are your problems. And I heard a lot, like, you're all messed up, you're all screwed up in the head, you got all these problems. And I remember thinking, man, with the job that I do, I gotta figure this out. So I started taking psychology classes at the local college. And that's when I was like sitting there listening to the teacher, like, oh, oh, okay. And I started to recognize that, maybe it wasn't me. I have my own issues and I had my own problems, but it wasn't me I got the bachelor's in psychology, and then years later, after that whole time as a patient, that's when I realized I wanted to go into counseling. And as I started to pull that onion back and recognize all of this data, all of these studies that people had and how it applied to, I guess you can call it like, my camp of people at that point in time, I realized there's a lot of guys that I knew that were drowning their anger at the bottom of a bottle, or like getting lost in all of the pills that they were getting shoved down their throat, or just through unhealthy behaviors, looking for validation in a strange woman's arms. But at the end of it, it's all these core emotions that they were ignoring, and they were trying to find other ways of satisfying it. And anger was one of those tools. Going out and getting in bar fights, or trying to make themselves feel better by, hurting other people.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's something really good to look at in our society today with, everything that's going on in the news and all of the gun violence we have in our country specifically. And I believe a lot of it's like mental health that's not really dealt with, or not. There's just not, people aren't being cared for, and we're not actually looking at what's behind it. It's easy to villainize people. Did you see a lot of angry women in the military as well?
Oh yeah, and in the military and in all walks of life, for sure. I mean, the way that people manifest anger, you mentioned before, like feeling that disturbance inside of you, and some people manifest their anger in tears. Some people manifest it in shouting matches. Some people just pick up and throw things. Some people get physically aggressive with each other. Some people isolate, they shut down, they close off. Now, the way that people express anger is going to be different. It's going to be quite different.
Yeah, yeah, and I mentioned that because we talk a lot about men and angry men, and I just wonder how women are feeling. And I know there's a lot of, and I said, like, do you know any angry women? I realized I should have said, did you find that anger was also experienced amongst all genders in the military? Or did you find that it was mostly a male, like a go-to that men had more than what other genders? Have you ever noticed patterns or anything like that?
No, yeah, I guess you could say you could say that. It's just more in the manifestation of how they're going to experience the anger. There's just certain people, or certain like societal norms, right? There's certain people that I can't express this. I can't let it out like that. Like, I just have to bottle it all in and down. And that doesn't just have to be confined to gender norms. Sometimes it's also just the way that, that family system taught their children how to deal with anger. You'll see it more like along the lines of a family dynamic where they're just all loud and they're explosive, or this one where we just all keep it all in and we're just going to drink it away, or just be passive aggressive instead.
Yeah, that's great. I have a friend that's always like, he's like, I mean, that yelling is just how I talk, but you'll know when I'm really angry. But he's just like, that's how his whole family is with each other. They all yell at each other. It's funny. So, and thank you for speaking to like gender norms. Like, this really is beyond gender. And the other thing I wanted to say about anger was, we were just touching upon it. You had mentioned it as, oh yeah, and how the family systems, right? Like what you were taught and how you learned to cope, and the tools that actually worked, and maybe anger kept you safe at some point. And I just want to share something about the term angry women. It's a confession I have, and something I learned a lot for anyone else, guys like out there who just, this is might open your blinders a little bit. But I grew up with a mother who experienced a lot of anger. My father did too. But I noticed my mom's was more pent up. And I remember she would like go down, and she told me once that she would like beat the couch in the basement with a baseball bat, and that her therapist told her to do that because her father had committed suicide when she was a teenager. And they were best friends, and she was really pissed off at him, and was the rest of her life, because she was the oldest child and she had to deal with all this crap, and the family swept it under. And then her mother instantly remarried and married an alcoholic, and it was like this had never happened. And so there's a lot of anger there. And my mom really taught me, like, she went to therapy. She encouraged me to talk about my feelings. My dad did too. So I had really great mirrors for that. But what I saw is just how, and then my parents divorced and my mom got angrier. And then I found this book called Angry Women in my mom's room. And there's also a book like Women Are From Venus, Men Are From Mars. And I was always like, Mom, why are you like so focused on gender and why guys are bad or different? And like, I felt like I had to defend every man in the world. I was like I had a big sister too. So I was literally the only male in the house at one point. And it turned out the Angry Women book was a really incredible book. I ended up studying in college about a performance artist and many women, feminists, Annie Sprinkle, who have actually used performance art to express the anger they really that's needed to be said for the mistreatment and inequality of women. And so I just want to say for all the women out there who I just accused of being angry women over the years, one thing a friend said to me, and I really asked her about this because I felt like I was attracted to angry women. I dated angry women. And I felt like they would blow up on me, or women that had issues with anger. And a friend of mine said, Ben, what if you just like know women who experience anger and that's just what you focus on? And I was like, whoa, you know,
yeah.
it was,
it wasn't a great revelation.
Yeah, it wasn't like a one thing. It was like, oh, yeah, that's just something I saw. And I realized today after some more work is what was under that is that I didn't feel safe around anger. To me, anger equaled abandonment, equaled, you know, my parents divorcing, it equaled something in my nervous system that was triggered, like a trauma memory that said you're not safe. And so that I've actually had to work through that in my relationship still today in my marriage, and how to just be with anger and not take it on and realize that I'm still okay and can be with it, with mine and with others. And so I just wanted to share that story because I don't think I've ever shared that publicly. I've maybe shared in my relationship or with my therapist, but it's something I just wanted to share because that's something that I revealed to me about anger, and that I actually, you know, I think I had a lot of unprocessed anger. And so that's what I focus on in other people. I like pointed at them, but they were a perfect mirror for myself.
That's good, man. That brings up like, two different points that I'd like to shine a little reflection on.
Please.
Yeah, the first one is like, Carl Jung would bring up some of these points as well, when he's like, we are sometimes often attracted to the shadows in other people that we often have in ourselves as well too. Like it's not rare for people to be attracted to aspects of that parent that they had the most conflict with or confrontation with. They see that pain inside of them, and when they grow up and they try to find a partner, they're looking for partners out there. They might realize that, like, they're not responsible for why their mom or their dad acted that way. But they find a partner that has similar features, because it's like, that was your problem. But, if I could just get their acceptance, if I can help them, if I can help that person out, it helps me feel better about myself. It wasn't about me. And we kind of we gravitate, we like are magnetized with people that have similar shadows to us. The other part is, when you're saying your mom went downstairs and she, would hit the couch with a baseball bat. Man, that manifestation of anger, man, that's an interesting piece to keep digging on into. And you start realizing, like, why am I so angry? Like that there's that expression, like, explain your anger to yourself, don't express it, and you'll open up the door of how to address it.
Say that again, because I haven't heard that. That's a good one. I'll write it down.
Explain your anger to yourself and don't express it, and then you'll open the doors of how to address it. And that's meaning that, I referenced anger as a reaction before, like the way that I look at it, the way that I work on counseling people with it, is that there's a reaction that we choose when we have a core emotion that's attached to us. I use the metaphor, and I think I use this in the talk that you were talking about watching too. It's like, it's as if you have, let's say you have a cavity in your mouth.
Oh yeah, this is great.
All right. Yeah, so it's like, it's as if you have a cavity in your mouth and you have like a piece of gum and you're chewing on that piece of gum. And that gum gravitates over, and the gum touches that cavity, and you're like, snap, and you spit the gum out. Just like, imagine, if you will, that the cavity is your core vulnerability that you have inside of you. There's like this core emotion that you have that's been triggered, it's been hurt, it's sensitive and vulnerable, and the gum is the irritant. It's that thing on the outside world, that external stressor that is now pressed up against your core vulnerability. Spitting out the gum, kicking it out of your mouth or flicking it across your mouth, that is you choosing anger as a reaction to deal with that irritant. The issue is not the gum. The issue is the cavity that's inside of there. So like, what are those emotional vulnerabilities? What are those cavities that you can have? And like, there's a whole bunch of different people with different thoughts on it. But like, as I look at them all, and I've talked to some of these people, I recognize there's like 7 core emotions that we got to start to recognize.
Yeah.
You have glad. Glad's one of the core emotions that, not everybody chooses anger with, but there's some people that we probably all know that just can't allow themselves to be happy. They're afraid that someone's going to steal their happiness away from them. So instead, they'll choose to be angry all the time, just like a crotchety old man. You got sad, you got fear, you got hurt, you got abandonment, which we'll also say like abandonment / rejection. Then you have guilt and you have shame. Like at the core of it all, like those are like the 7 core emotions, the 7 cavities that we have that cause us to have this reaction where out of the whole bookshelf of different reactions we can pull from, we often choose to use anger because it's just so familiar to us. We're so comfortable with it and we know how effective it is too. So we'll grab anger and we'll manifest it in however we have been taught or developed to manifest our anger as a way to push that gum away from the cavity instead of dealing with the cavity itself, the actual core emotion. So when you explain it to yourself instead of just expressing it, you can actually stop and say, why am I so angry? What is it that's eating me? Oh man, that thing that person said to me, it hurt, or that really made me sad, or what, I'm feeling rejected. I'm feeling like unloved right now, or like whatever the core emotion might be. Now you can effectively try to address that. Because a lot of times when we just address it with anger, we're actually pushing ourselves further away from actually dealing with the core emotion.
That's beautiful and powerful. It really resonates with me. So the anger you're saying is more of a reaction to the core emotion.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's the way that I look at it. And
yeah, it's the way I look at it too. I love that. And it's good. I like to highlight that here so we can say like what's underneath the anger. I know a lot of time for me, it's fear or feeling hurt, right? Or it's sometimes many of these. I'm looking at them. I'm like, yeah, it's actually a few of them all at once.
It's usually a combination. Like if you said you felt betrayed, like I can't believe they would say that to me. I feel so betrayed. Well, what's betrayal? Like you feel hurt, you feel sad because nobody wants to feel like that. And then, you could feel rejection or abandonment because you thought that person meant more to you or they were looking out for you. And now you feel rejected by them.
So when we're choosing anger, because a lot of the times, my wife and I practice nonviolent communication as well and try to use I feel statements a lot. It's like, I feel angry. That comes up a lot. I won't say with who, but what do you like when that is just coming up a lot? What would you say to someone? Like, what could they do when that is the thing that just keeps coming? Like
when anger keeps coming back up again?
Anger, rage, like red light. All I see is anger, like it's anger. I don't know what else it is. It's anger, like what?
Oh yeah.
How can we get past that a little bit? What do you think is the access to like, what's the access to getting beneath it or through it or?
Yeah, well, I mean, so there's a couple ways to kind of look at that too. You got anger that manifests when you're, driving down the road and somebody cuts you off, or the person at Sonic messes up your order, right? Like you got that anger that just happens impulsively. You have that emotional reaction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you have the anger, the dynamic of like that interpersonal relationship. That's a little different. That's one where we can have different communication skills. The anger that we feel towards our partner can sometimes be more intense because they're our greatest emotional vulnerability. Like I know from my wife, I want validation. I want to feel appreciated. There's certain things that, I look for in that relationship that I'm not looking for anywhere else. So when that person says something that makes me upset, I feel it more intensely. Like as my greatest ally in this battle of life, like when they say something negatively, sometimes I can't respect it as constructive criticism, and it just really, really hurts bad. So I'm going to react more aggressively to that. So if it's managing it in your relationship, there's a lot.
Let's take that example. Yeah, like what would you say is the access to dealing with the anger there, even if it's hurting?
Well, first off, you made a great point when you said like using those I statements. Like that's so underutilized and some people can't figure out how to do it. Or you try to teach people how to, communicate with I language and they go, okay, let me try. I think that you're a jerk. I'm like, whoa, good try. Let's try to revamp this. But like in that whole concept of I
Yeah, it can
statements,
take
like
practice. It takes practice.
it does. I mean, people don't realize that in dialogue, in communication, especially when we're that close to each other, like, if we're having a conversation with each other and I'm saying like, as soon as I say you, like this could be the entire statement, but as soon as the you comes out, the other person usually stops listening. And now they just pause on that little part of the you statement and they're ready to defend themselves. Like I didn't hear anything else. Shields up, photon torpedoes at full. I'm ready to do this back and forth. Like I'm going to defend what you just said about me. I didn't even hear the rest. We're not even talking about that anymore. We're just going to stay focused on that you statement part. So like really learning how to use I language effectively is great when it comes to trying to deconflict, like de-escalate the conflict at home. But when you have a relationship, especially when they get up to a place where they could do couples counseling, you got maybe somebody that can lead them in how to effectively communicate with each other. It's really hard for men to accept this sometimes too, but journal. Like there's nothing wrong with when you hit a moment of conflict with your partner to say something like, "Hey, you know what? I appreciate you sharing that with me. I think that I might be a little too emotional right now, or I might be feeling a little too much right now to give that the response that you deserve. I'm going to ask, can you give me give me a little bit of time, give me 30 minutes to just kind of like sit with this so that I can process it and I can give you the response that you deserve." And then break away. I mean, you can journal, you can talk out loud to yourself. Don't just mumble and grumble, but actually put some focused thought into it. When we feel how we feel. A lot of times we don't know how we feel. Like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" I know what I'm feeling, man. No, you feel how you feel. You don't know how you feel until you take that emotion and you put it through the filter of your vocabulary. Every word we have has a definition, and we got to put those words in a specific order in order to actually conceptualize what it is that we feel. So you got to do that through spoken word or through like written language. And when you take it time to put that pen to paper and you actually like write down like, "I'm mad." No, I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. Like I'm disappointed in how I felt about that. And you can actually start to recognize that, express or explain your anger to yourself instead of expressing it. So you can realize this is what I'm really feeling when they said that. I felt personally attacked by that. And I'm about to impulsively react instead of stay focused on what the topic was.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really great. And I just want to identify for the listeners, for me, a lot of times what comes up in my relationship is I feel hurt, abandoned, disappointed, sad, all of those things because I am wanting comfort from my partner. And a lot of the times, just because I want it doesn't mean she's available to give it or in a space to. And so I've learned, once I'm identifying what I need, that actually, self-soothing has also been a really great tool for me, finding some great ways to put that in, like taking a walk, running, meditating, writing. We just got a trampoline. I love it. I jump up and down a trampoline, lifting weights, breathing, talking about it, all of those things. And I know we're about out of time. I have just one or two more questions for you. Is that cool?
Sure, man. Yeah.
All right, great. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's listening. Please be sure to subscribe if you haven't, on YouTube and or Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. We are there streaming, and really help us spread this word of medicine. If this resonates with you, share this with someone who could use it. And again, Adrian, it's so wonderful to have you back. It's great. I feel like we're going to have to do a part 3 soon too.
Anytime, man.
So we had a great question from Becky, and I love to hear from the women too. This isn't just for men. It's just what we're identifying. And Becky said, can we just comment on the stigma of therapy with men? Like, why do you think there's such a stigma present? And how can we make therapeutic, therapy of all kinds, therapeutic activities more available to men? What do you think about this?
I think that the stigma starts generationally. I mean, we're entering into a bit of a new season where it's starting to melt, starting to thaw a little bit, but there's still a lot of guys that just don't want to get to that place of, the I feels, like I don't need this. Like, why do I have to get into this? Therapy's only for the broken. But I mean, we can recognize that, I try to go to the gym at least 5 days a week, right? I've realized the importance of my physical health, but like, what are we doing to stay healthy up here?
Yeah.
Like, why are we willing to put so much into our body and we're not willing to put anything into this type of work? Like we we fall victim then to this thing called like the fallacy of the self. Like, I'm a relatively healthy person with a relatively healthy body and a relatively healthy brain. Therefore, these thoughts in my head must be relatively healthy. So by the second or the third or the fourth time I hear myself telling myself these same thoughts, I start to accept them as truth. And then I build my next thought and my next belief on that lie that I have now indoctrinated as truth within my own head. And then we're just off to the races, So being able to get to this place where we can think of getting mental health care, going into counseling just as easily as we think of going to the gym to stay physically healthy, is going to be one of those places that we're going to make some grounds in that, And then also, one of the things that I love that, my practice is doing is we're starting to partner up with police forces so that we can be running parallel with the department, but not like working under the department, not occupational therapists, but an individual therapist organization that's next to them. So when the person needs help, they know exactly where they can go without fear of repercussions, without fear of it getting reported back, and actually get that conversation. There's too much of a stigma that if I ask for help, it's going to impact my work. People are going to use it against me. My wife or my ex or someone else is going to like get those notes somehow, and they're going to know all of my deep, dark secrets and how I'm really feeling. That's not how that works. And we got to keep making it accessible and available to people so that they can get that help without feeling that.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I think we can't say this enough. And also, I want to thank you for who you are and what you do, because you lead by example. And just like you said, there weren't any other therapists out there like you who had been through this, who had been through combat, who had lived through this stuff, who's still dealing with this today. And I really believe we have to lead by example, and we have to be the change. And so you really, I believe, Adrian, are really a great example of walking the walk, walking the talk, and making safer spaces for men. Even to look, like, hey, I am a therapist. Like, look at me. Like, I am a man. Like, you can come to me, but even then I'm finding men don't feel safe with other men. And I even used to seek out female therapists because I feel like I felt more comfortable with them. For some reason, I trusted them more. And that was really a big thing that I didn't see till later in life. So I just want to thank you for doing that. And I have a men's group called the Lion's Den. It's going to be, we have a new group starting soon. So if there's any guys out there who would like to be part of a group of men that meet on a weekly basis to hold safe space, to like practice being real, to practice holding each other up and having each other's backs and like learning how to do this together, I would love to have you. Adrian, before we go, you want to tell us about the Sheepdog program and how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. So the Sheepdog program is a nonprofit that I get the honor of being the CEO of, and the whole purpose is to, remove the barriers and the obstacles that are preventing veterans and first responders to get the care that they need. We also provide therapy programs for practices that are looking to try to focus on first responders and veterans in that community, providing, trying to just reinterpret and present that type of therapeutic approach to those populations that are afraid of the stigma. They're afraid of like getting into that type of a help, or they might have been like me when I first got into it, and I'm dealing with these therapists, the dude with the ponytail and the patches on his tweed jacket that like knew a lot of stuff, but just like could not relate to our walk of life. And no offense to any therapists out there with ponytails and like elbows on their tweed jackets.
But yeah, like someone who got to spend a lot of their life like studying, and you're out there like getting blown up. So it's a little different lifestyle.
Yeah, and the little nuances that come with that walk of life too. For the people that have like had their hands in the dirt and like they've sweat the blood and they've walked that walk. So it's just the nonprofit focuses on trying to get them into therapy, cover their therapy fees, their counseling fees, be it intensive or outpatient treatment, and like we said, also to continue to promote and encourage the research, and then provide therapeutic approaches for different centers that want to focus on that population as well.
That's awesome. Well, be sure to look up the Sheepdog program on Instagram, on Facebook, and where else can we find you? Those are the two main places?
Those are the two main places. I just started getting harassed to start my reels and my TikToks, so you'll find like a couple of videos out there too.
You relax on that. You're fine. You don't need to have that to have to be seen, and that's the purpose of this, is that so more people of all walks of life know safe spaces. And if you know anyone out there, no matter what their gender is, but especially, you know, if there are men who maybe don't feel like there's a safe space but are open and willing, you know, please send them our way. Please send us a message. You can get hold of Adrian through the Sheepdog program. And tell me the name of your center again.
Yep, it's Emerald Medical
Yeah.
LLC. We're down in Fort Pierce, Florida, as well up to Merritt Island, Florida.
Cool. But you can also work with them virtually as well. And you have so many different kinds of great practices. And I know that you have quality time planned with your significant other today. So I want to honor that. I want to honor you and your time for being here. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Always an honor, my friend.
And it's for me too. It's really cool. I love having you. Thank you so much for all the great questions. If you still have questions for us, please feel free to send us a message at dudeyou'regettingwell@gmail.com. And, you know, thanks for being here, dudes. Don't forget to subscribe. And Adrian, can you give us a dude you're getting well to take us out?
Dude, you're getting well.
Nice.